Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Flash. This week's episode was a continuation of the Gorilla City arc. Obviously, we had Grodd coming to Earth 1. Now, last episode, I was wondering, it's like, why would Gypsy work with him? It's like, is he blackmailing him about the HR thing? I was like, maybe that could be it. Maybe she's just working with him some other. I was trying to understand why she'd work with him. Turns out the reason why she's working with him is because he took control of her mind. The reason why she was on Earth 2 in the first place is because she was trying to, do her job and hunt down a breacher. And he ended up going to Earth 2, and basically she ended up getting blindsided by Grodd. He ended up taking control of her mind. So kind of putting her back in the, she's a good person category. I was like, don't tell me you're being crappy and just so people. I was like, no, she's good. She's 100% good. But now you have Grodd here on Earth. And then this episode brought up some very interesting things. Like, one big thing is like, Barry's thinking like, when it's all said and done, he's like, every time he deals with Grodd, Grodd just comes back. He's just a constant problem. This is the third time Grodd's come back. I think about, that's kind of a seasonal thing, isn't it? Because he popped back up last season too, so it's like, he's a seasonal thing. But it's like, he's like, the fact is he put so many people in danger, especially the whole Joe situation. That was crazy. About to have Joe like pull the trigger, and like Barry just barely got there in time because the bullet actually grazed Joe's head. I was like, ooh, that was close. I was like, dude, what? I was like, wait, what? Did you see Barry moving in slow motion trying to stop? I was like, that was nuts, dude. But it's like, is that on top of the fact is, more so than anything, is the fact is that Grodd being here, this whole gorilla attack, means the future is coming true. Like, once again, it's to the point, Barry has literally only one thing has changed about the future. And even that, I would call technicality on that, because truth be told is, I get the feeling Plunder will get out, and then Barry will inadvertently have to catch him again or something, for whatever the situation may be. Or maybe that isn't 100% something they change, but it seems like such an insignificant thing. But then again, it's the whole domino effect. You don't know what small changes could have greater effects later on. The butterfly effect. One small change could have a drastic effect on the future. But so far, that's the only thing they've changed. They've tried other things, but it's like, nope, things have still kind of played out this way, especially now with the whole gorilla attack. So now Barry's kind of got in his mind, he's like, if I want to change things, the best way I can do it, I'm going to have to kill Grodd. For one, is to make sure that Grodd never comes back, because it's like anytime he's played the safe game and just locks up bad guys, they end up coming back, especially like someone like Grodd. He almost lost Joe because of him. But this whole future thing also still set in stone, so that means Iris is going to die. And it's just, he feels like if he needs to change the future drastically, the best way he can do that is by killing Grodd, which Iris is like, you don't need to do that, find a different way. But he's like, dude, Oliver kills, and then Iris is like, and Oliver suffers from that. He has to carry the weight of every person he kills. And I'm like, yes, Iris is 100% right. It's like, dude, Oliver's dealing with the ramifications of the fact is that he killed people. It's not like Oliver wants to kill people. I mean, you could argue maybe back in season 1 he did. It was a situation of like, he felt like that was the best and only way. That's the reason why he's ever killed, is because he thought it was like that was the only way to deal with situations. It's like, and at current time, he probably thought, that was the best option. But now looking back, going through everything he's going through now with Prometheus, it's like, no, he definitely wishes he had found a different way of handling those situations back then. But it's just everything he went through, all of his experiences, trying to make up for his father's past crimes, trying to save the city that he loved and he's a part of. So it's understandable. Like, it's a situation, because even Oliver kind of respects Barry. Like, even Oliver, if he was there, would tell Barry, was like, don't do that, don't follow my footsteps, be a better hero than I am. It's like, I'm down my path, and maybe it's too late for me, but it's not too late for you. You've never actually killed or hurt anyone. Well, I mean, hurt's a stretch of a word, because obviously he's beaten up some bad guy, but never killed anyone. So, and even Wells kind of adds a little bit to it, because it's like, Wells did everything he did, last season. He ended up killing, what was his name, the Turtle, as a way to protect Jesse from Zoom. But it's a situation of where he was like, the moment you start doing certain things, you start trying to justify them, and it makes it harder for you to stop doing them. Kind of anytime he has to justify a bad thing he does, it just means he's going to most likely do it over and over again. So it's like, if Barry doesn't kill in the first place, he won't have to worry about having to stop himself. And that's something where Oliver is like, he even said it, like, he's like, ever since he killed Dark, he's been doing nothing but killing someone, because it's like, for him, that's probably just because it's a switch inside of his head now. Like, killing someone is a lot for Oliver. It's a lot easier than letting someone live, just because he is a good person at heart, but his instincts are trained to kill people. Like, that's what he's been trained. He's part of the Bratva. His trait, everything that he's been taught, everything he learned, like during the flashbacks we saw in season 3 till now, like he tries to balance it out and be a good person. But it's like definitely season 5, obviously, is all showing you who he was at the beginning of the season, at the beginning of the series. So he's kind of leaving that behind because it's like for him, it's like being a good person won't save the day, which is like it can. So, obviously, Oliver's got his demons to struggle with. So if Barry did this, he'd have to carry that with him too. But once again, playing devil's advocate, like you would understand why he would do it, because it's like it's kind of the same situation of like kind of, keeping it in the DC family. You take Batman, for example. Take Jason Todd, for example. I'm sure Batman, after a situation with Jason Todd, he would have wished that he had killed the Joker just because it was like, it'd be a bet, like Jason would still be alive, in one of those type of situations. So, not saying that he should go that right, but playing devil's advocate just for the sake of conversation, you can understand why he would think that that'd be the perfect way. It's the only way to protect the people he loves, plus make such a drastic change to the future. I will admit, the final showdown, obviously, it was like, it's all three of them. Everyone's like, oh, dude, this is going to be sick. I will admit, didn't go the way I was hoping it was. Obviously, you had Wally and Jesse kind of acting as diversions and everything. I was like, but it's like, it's not what I necessarily wanted. Even Barry's little showdown with Grodd wasn't even that big. But then they kind of make up for it. The fact is, because it's like, yo, this is all meant to be a distraction, so they're not supposed to really be going all out. It's not supposed to be meant to be a fight, because it's not like they could fight all like this huge army of gorillas. But then they got Solovar to show up, and like he kicks Grodd's ass hard, like throwing him up, knocking him on top of a building, just like punching him and beating him down. And Solovar wanted to kill Grodd, but then Barry was like, no, don't. He's like, show him mercy like I showed you mercy. Kind of show him a way to justify you, a way to punish him is to basically make him stay here on Earth. It's like, take away all of you from him. Because before, Grodd's biggest problem was the fact that he was the only one of his kind, but now he's found other people like him. But now it's like, punish him by making it so that I'll make sure he can never come back to your Earth. And the fact is, he has to stay here. So it does make you wonder, will we have any future interactions with Gorilla City? That'd be kind of cool. Like, I mean, maybe it'd be a situation where Barry might need their help in the future. But nevertheless, which has to be a very, like I said, because for Grodd, it hits him once again on multiple levels. Obviously, the being alone aspect. But now it's like he's back here, he's locked up again, he's kind of treated like a cage animal again. And on top of that, also, it's like he had power for a moment and it was immediately stripped from him. So I was kind of thinking, like, when he originally went after that military guy, obviously that was for using nuclear missiles to destroy Central City. At first, I thought that was like, oh, is he getting revenge on everyone that ever had any association with him being turned into what he was? But then I was like, no, because Eobard's the one that made him like that. But I was thinking, like, Eobard, I didn't, like, I forgot that Eobard is the one that made Grodd the way he is. I was thinking, like, oh, maybe, because I think in my brain, because it's been a while, I was thinking Eobard saved him from the experiments that kind of made him the way he is, and then, took him on and being like, oh, yeah, like, I'm your father, I helped rescue. But it's like, no, Eobard, I mean, granted, we don't know how Grodd's whole situation, I mean, that was probably how Grodd's story was supposed to go. But I mean, obviously, Eobard, coming from the future, knows everything, so he knew exactly what it takes to make. No, was that the situation? Or am I right? I might be right. I mean, to be fair, if that is the case, I'm sure anyone that might have any association with him possibly being an experiment, like anyone that might have had hands-on experience with that, or it's probably gone or dealt with already. But I was thinking that's what that storyline's leading to. But then it's like, no, it turns out to be connected to missiles. I was also shocked about that whole situation. It's like, oh, there's like 90,000 combinations, and Barry has to figure them out in like the span of a time. And they're like, oh man, this isn't going to work. This isn't enough. I need help or something. I was like, dude, the clock is ticking. I was like, okay, for some reason I was thinking like, okay, what most likely might happen is that maybe Gypsy would show up at the last minute, because at first, Cisco's asking for her help, but she's like, no, I'm not going to get involved. She's kind of got her own situation, I guess, because she kind of doubts herself a little bit. It's like, I'm not a hero. I'm not into saving the whole world type of thing. It's like, I got my job and that's all I'm good at. I'm not about to get mixed up in this. It's like, doesn't want more trouble, I think because it's also, on some level, because she feels responsible for it. And it's like, she feels like, I'm just going to get in the way. It's like, you've literally got 3 speedsters. They've got you, Cisco, and you've also got Caitlyn with her power. So it's like, why do you really need me? So I was thinking like, okay, I knew she was gonna pop up. I thought she was gonna do it on her own, and then she gets there in time to help Barry and send a missile somewhere else. But then later on, when Barry saw that, I was like, oh, I guess we don't need additional help. Because I was wondering, I was like, okay, time is running out. I was like, okay, he's like, this isn't working. It's like, oh, all you can do is keep going, Barry, which he did. And I was kind of, I was actually surprised. I thought something else was going to help happen. I thought maybe the others were going to come in to help him somehow, but I wouldn't know how they would be able to. But then because then I started thinking about the whole gypsy approach. I'm like, now that wouldn't work because it's like she can open a breach. Basically, that would mean firing it into some. I mean, I guess if you think about it, maybe they could open a breach and drop it into like the water or something. But then it's like, that turns into a whole eco situation too. So, I mean, I don't know. Wasn't there a situation where Barry had to run across the water to get rid of a bomb? Am I imagining that? I remember some circumstance because obviously there's been occasions where he's had to run on the water, but it's like I had this vague memory that he did that in the series. Maybe he didn't. Like I said, I hate it. My memory's sucky. But I get the vague notion like there was like a bomb or something. He ran it across the water and then ran away before it exploded or something like that. I can't remember. But nevertheless, I was thinking something like that. Whatever the case may be. Turns out it didn't happen like that. So we did get the notion that he is locked up in Argus and he's it's like, oh yeah, his cellmate is King Shark, and like even says like, oh, I won't mind seeing that showdown, which is like, is that like a little wink to be like, hey, maybe in the future we get King Shark and we get Grodd to work together, and it's like, I mean, granted, we already have the Legion of Doom set up in Legends. It's like, I mean, we've already got all these villains. Like, at some point, it's going to happen. It has to happen. Maybe it'll be the next crossover event. You never know. It's like the Legion of Doom grows even more, and they become the problem that all the superheroes have to get together to kind of stop. Because I mean, granted, a situation like that is obviously going to be like a once a season thing. Like, crossovers are never more than that. I mean, there might be some like obviously some Flash and Arrow crossing over just because that's a little easier, that in Legends and stuff like that. But getting everyone together like that, it's probably not cheap to do, and those productions are probably like very costly. So, but nevertheless, to me, just thinking about that, because I feel like I had the vague notion like Grodd is pretty big in. I mean, because to me, the reason why I'm pulling that there is because of Teen Titans. Like, I can't remember if that's necessarily the Legion of Doom, like the final enemies of the original Teen Titans cartoon on Cartoon Network. I can't remember, because I remember it's like a pretty big organization that the Teen Titans all had to kind of come together to deal with. And I don't know if that was necessarily the Teen Titans version of the Legion of Doom, but I'm pretty sure Grodd was part of that. So I'm curious to see if that's the case. I don't even remember if that was like a Legion of Doom type of situation with Young Justice either. I know I'm kind of going way off board here, but it's like, I do remember Vandal Savage kind of being the head of it, but I don't know if that was necessarily a Legion of Doom of its own. Maybe it was on both accounts, but nevertheless. Other things that came up in this episode, it's almost kind of like, interestingly enough, it's slightly, to a small extent, it's almost like the Flash's Valentine episode, because last week we kind of had the one for Supergirl, and now we kind of have it for the Flash to a certain extent. It's more so like a friendship thing. At least that's what HR kind of describes it as. And I just love the fact that, really quick, I love the fact is that Earth 2 Wales, Harry, I keep forgetting the fact is that everyone has their name. It's like Wales is Earth 1, Harry is Earth 2, and HR is Earth 19. But nevertheless, the fact is that Harry hates HR with a passion. He's up there brushing his teeth, and HR's got like a cup, and he's just like drinking from it, and then Harry just comes over and spits in it and walks away. It's like, what the hell was that? And it's like he's constantly tearing HR down, being like, you're an idiot. What, you can't even damn it tell time, you're stupid. It's like he looks at HR and he just hates him so much. I think it's mainly because the fact is, it's like, you look like me, you have the potential to be me, but you're a complete and utter idiot. And I think it pisses him off. It's like, because it's also like, I left this Earth in your hands to help out this team, and it turns out like I was wrong to do that because you're just totally useless, which he has his moments, but still. But amongst that, you also had like the Wally and Jesse situation, and Wally being like, Jesse being like, okay, Dad, I'm gonna stay here on Earth. And he stands up and Wally backs up, like, you see the fear in Wally's eyes, and he's like, it's okay, you can stay here. And it's just like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah, you're an adult, you can make your own decisions. And then immediately afterwards, like, they're helping out with the whole headset situation for Joe, and then him and Wally are talking, he's like letting on, he's like, yeah, I don't know how much time I have left. I'm like, is he? I was like, he's faking it, isn't it? It's just the way he's talking, the way he's enunciating it, and the way he's looking, just like, oh no. And the way he reveals it like that, if it was really such a big deal, he wouldn't have said anything. I was like, you're lying to him, aren't you? You're trying to make him feel guilty about it, which he does. And he's like telling Jesse, he's like, yeah, you shouldn't stay here on Earth. And then immediately she goes, why are you saying this? He's like, yeah, your dad, he's sick. And she's like, he told you that, didn't he? He's like, yeah. And he's like, okay. And she goes off and she's super pissed. She's like, are you really? You sunk this low that you have to pretend that you're dying? He's like, well, I never said exactly that I was dying. I said, I don't know how many days I have left, which, I mean, none of us really do. She's like, Dad, I'm staying here. Enough is enough. Which ultimately he decides, he's like, yeah, okay, Jesse, you can stay here. Like I said, it's understandable. You're a dad. You don't want to let go of your little girl, especially across dimensions. You know, it's like, you know, even no matter how old she is, doesn't matter if she's a superhero that can protect herself. That's still your little girl. That does kind of beg up the question, though. If she's not well, I have to take that back. We do know that Earth 2 has other superheroes, because when they went to Earth 2, when Barry and Cisco went to Earth 2 last season, they did, you know, obviously Barry has a number, so all these different superheroes and stuff like that. So kind of pointing out the fact that they exist there. Like, for example, Oliver's dad is obviously Green Arrow. So there are superheroes there, but it's like there is no other speedster there, because Jay Garrick isn't from Earth 2. He's from Earth 3, so... not unless he pops over there and helps every once in a while. I guess it's kind of a situation where it's like, well, not unless some other speedster exists, but I mean, I feel like they would have brought that up. So it's like, it's kind of crazy that, I mean, because it's now we have Earth 1 has 3 speedsters, while Earth 2 has none. I just think it's funny. I mean, granted, it's not like Earth 1 has that many heroes here on Earth, like... I say on Earth like that because, you know, the legends are traveling through history, which, yes, they're still on Earth, but it's like they're in the whole time stream and everything, so it kind of exists nowhere, but kind of everywhere at the same time, if you want to break it down like that. So it's like, technically there's 3 superheroes, because Vixen's a thing, too, so Vixen, but Jesse is here to stay, which does bring the opportunity. It's like, soon, I mean, the fact there's all 3 of them there, it does lead to an opportunity to be like, hey, we can all come together and just kick some serious ass type of situation. So there's still hope for it to kind of get like a really spectacular moment of just everyone working together. But I'll get to that soon enough. And also gotta admit, the whole Cisco and Gypsy situation. It's like, I definitely want to see more of that. Even Cisco's like, yo, admit it. You like me, you're into me, you know, you want to spend more time with this phase, you know, just admit it. That's the real reason why you came back and helped and everything. She's like, okay, Cisco. At first she's like, yo, this is kind of a long distance situation. It's like kind of might not be her type of thing. Which she's like, okay, Cisco, the truth is though, I'd be too much for you to handle. I'm like, oh, I really like her. I want that to continue to be a thing. It's like, dude, they're so cute together. It's like, for one, it's also just an excuse to see more Jessica Camacho, just because I adore her. Just like every time I see her pop up, I'm excited. I'm like, because Sleepy Hollow, I think, is the first thing I ever saw her in. And just ever since then, you know, just obviously the reveal, like her being... I won't spoil Sleepy Hollow's, like, last season of Sleepy Hollow if someone's actually curious about it, so I won't say anything, but there's a surprise about her character that her character kind of takes a turn in the story that I was kind of interested in, which is like, that's also another thing too, that she never pops up again so far. That's why I'm kind of bummed out, but to see her in other stuff makes me happy, so I definitely want to see her around. Also, because she's like a serious badass. I do apologize, because I do realize this now, like, I looked at the, recording time. It's like, dude, I've been literally talking about everything else but the episode. It was a good episode, but like, you know, my brain's kind of been all over the place. It's like one conversation leads to another, which kind of gets me on a whole tangent situation. But like I said, just definitely want to see more of those two together, just because they're too cute together. It's like, because also, like, it's a situation where it's like, I want my superheroes things to work out in this episode. And what kind of sparks that thought in my head is that Barry ended up proposing to Iris in this episode, because it's a situation where he's like, yo, I've been so focused on trying to fix the future. It's like, basically he hasn't been, you know, doing what Jay said. It's just live your life. And he's been so fixated on trying to fix the future. He hasn't been just living here in the now and just kind of trying to build a future. And so he's kind of putting that aside for now. And, you know, deciding to propose Iris, which she didn't say yes, but, I mean, I hope she says yes. But the reason I brought that up is because not every relationships don't necessarily work out for people. It's like Cara's just getting in a relationship with Mono, which obviously there's bumpy roads there, but things didn't work out with her and Jimmy. And then there's the whole situation with Oliver and Felicity last season, and now him and Susan, which that's kind of getting rocky too. Well, not kind of rocky, downright rocky. I don't think any of the legends are in relationships. I mean, there's the whole Nate and Amaya situation, but even then, it's like in a circumstance like that, I want it to work out. That's why I want all my heroes. I want everyone that be in good relationships. I want Supergirl to be happy. I want Oliver to be happy. I want Barry to be happy. I want all of the legends to be happy. It's just like, in the superhero world, your love life isn't always a secure thing. I mean, take Barry and Iris, for example. It's like, well, we know what's possibly going to happen to her. So it's such a thing that I'm like, I mean, especially because I kind of already went into it knowing, like, holy crap, like, some crap happened to Iris in the comic books, didn't it? So, I mean, they still kind of stay true to the comic books in the sense of, like in that particular case that I brought up before and referenced in the past, in particular the crossover, was the fact is that she was killed. I don't remember. I think it was by Reverse Flash that she ended up getting killed by, but nevertheless, it's still another speedster that's killing her, and this time being Savitar, which we did see him pop up in an episode, like, while he's going to go get some food, and then, like, all of a sudden, like, Savitar pops up, and it's like, well, what the hell? And that's the end of the episode. I was waiting for the stinger. I didn't know what it was like. Okay, somebody's going to come and interrupt you guys or something. I just wasn't sure who. But now it's like Savitar's there, and it's like, okay, wait, what? I mean, you could also start throwing out your thoughts like, wait, it's a little suspicious that you happen to pop up now when Julian just happens to not be in town. But it's like, how did you get out of the Speed Force? Not unless he got out on his own. Not unless, like I said, not unless there's another speedster that we're not aware of that kind of got him. It's like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I mean, he is kind of, quote unquote, the god of speed. That's how he likes to, like, label himself. I mean, we do see him in this bulky armor and everything. We did, for a moment, get to see what he looked like when they kind of introduced him. So I'm wondering, will that ever be a thing where you kind of strip away his armor and get to see him underneath? Like, what is that armor exactly? What is that made of? Is the armor what holds his speed, or is he himself a speedster and the armor is just extra layered protection? Like, what is his suit? I've never brought that question up before, but the way it operates, what is that? And once again, another situation where I'm like, the Speed Force is very neutral. It doesn't really care about good versus evil. It's kind of a situation like, hey, if you need our help, we're here to aid you. It's like, we give this gift to everyone. It's like, we'd prefer you to probably use your powers for good, but if you decide to use them for evil, oh well, as long as you're not trying, like, basically, because, I'm sure the Speed Force kind of looks at things as kind of like, there needs to be a balance in the world, so I'm sure for them, there needs to be evil with the good to kind of keep this whole balance in nature. And the reason why they'll probably help one side, in particular, good side, is because they want to maintain that balance. Because maybe an evil speedster might end up trying to disrupt that balance and throw everything off kilter. So at least that's what my thought process is on it. So, but like I said, it does beg the question of, like, how is Savitar here? Did he break out of the Speed Force, himself? Did he get someone else's help? Is that like a real him, or is it like before where he was sealed inside of the stone and he's just been able to kind of force his own, kind of like how he would interact? He basically wasn't necessarily there because he was kind of sealed away, but he'd kind of like push his way through and kind of be like, oh, I'm here, kind of like a fake image of him or something. Like, maybe he can reach out using his powers, like kind of like an image of himself, kind of like make it tangible, but only for a limited amount of time before he has to kind of go back or something. So maybe you can think of it as like a little bit of his power is leaking out from where he's sealed at or something like that. So just random thoughts. I'm very interested to see where next week's episode takes us. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.